I'm here with Courtney of Courtney for Life. And Courtney, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. So just so we have this on the record, my full name is Courtney Ustrzycki. I go by Courtney for Life. It's just way easier, but that is my brand. I'm an online nutrition coach. I do strength training as well. I'm a competitive athlete. I keep both of those elements very separate, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. I'm originally from Canada and I live in Mexico.
Wow, that's so exciting. So tell me about how you got started in the world of fitness and coaching.
So in terms of fitness, I started getting into working out with the typical freshman 15. For me, I was very lucky enough to get 20 of that, not just 15. Before that, I was kind of active, but I didn't really have I would say, athletic background at all. I kind of played intramural sports here and there, so I didn't really have any background. How I actually got into started to work out in college, I don't really know what the actual push or the switch was for that, but that kind of just grew into a passion. I really like doing it, and me turning into a personal trainer was nothing planned. I didn't go to school for fitness, for science, for exercise, for anything like that. I was actually a graphic designer. I graduated after 5 years of school for graphic design. I worked for a sports apparel company, and I had my career. I thought I was good, but then my fitness was my passion. And even though looking back now, when I was very passionate about it, I didn't work out properly. Obviously hindsight's 2020. I thought what I was doing was right. But basically the kind of switch that took me into getting into personal training and eventually leading into developing my own business was I was literally approached one day at the gym from the general fitness manager, and he's like, "Hey, babe," in short, he's like, "Do you want to work for us?" Wow. And at that time, for the Canadian folks who are listening, it was Good Life Fitness. And I'm sure many commercial gyms, it's very business based. It's not necessarily based on the people or the clients and stuff. It's more so based on making money, and it's sales, right? So I didn't know that, but I did get into the fitness. I had a lot to learn. I did my weekend CanFit Pro course, my weekend CPR course, all of that. I'd say very basic stuff. And it's been a massive snowball effect since then. Wow. So I guess short, without making this too long, is I worked at Good Life for 1.5 years. My boyfriend and I, at the time, we both worked there. We quit. We bought a house together. We built a gym in our backyard. We were both personal trainers there for 3 years, about 3 years. Needless to say, our relationship didn't work out, and I had an opportunity to start my business online. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I shifted entirely. I built my business online. I quit all of my one-on-one personal training clients. I traveled a little bit, and somehow when I landed in Mexico, I was like, I'm staying here. And that was 3 years ago.
Oh my gosh. I feel like so many people, we fantasize about that idea of pursuing our dream in our career and sort of what our interest is. Two, sort of that idea of going off to tropical paradise and putting down roots. Was it a scary experience, or did you have your doubts at any time?
I think reasonably there were doubts. There was the fear of failure. There's the fear of, is it safe living here with any country, not just Mexico? Mm-hmm. The fear of just everything crashing, but that's a possibility, right? And that's just kind of a risk. That was a big risk that I took when I went from having a very secure financial career as a graphic designer, and then all of a sudden quitting that. I went so far into debt after my first year of being a personal trainer, just because there's not a lot of money in it, and you have to be a really good salesperson if you want to work in a commercial gym. So I did take a huge financial hit. But as I was building my business online, when my boyfriend and I were together and we had our house and gym together, he was incredibly supportive. And I think without him being as supportive as he was, I don't think I would have been able to get to where I am today. Mm-hmm. So having that support, and there were days I honestly would wake up and I'm like, I have no money, or am I doing this properly? All of the thoughts and the fears and the doubts, all of that have been happening for 6 years now. And it's just like, I've slowly learned to take risks, and you take a small risk and then you take a bigger risk and then a bigger risk. And then now just how I see things is like, well, I've done all of that. Why can't I just do something else? And now I look at risks or fears of unknown as opportunities, being like, okay, well, I can stay back in comfort, or what happens if I try this? And so far, thankfully, nothing bad has happened. I love it here. I'm incredibly happy. I haven't had any business issues, and everything's good. So I just kind of, honestly, I just go with the flow of things.
Wow.
See how things roll.
Yeah. What's your advice for someone maybe thinking of doing the same thing, me?
Go all in. That is like the biggest thing. There was the pivotal moment that I had from being a personal trainer at my home gym, and then all of a sudden making that choice to be entirely online. So I was starting to build my online client roster. It was very small. And then I still had my personal training clients, and my personal training clients were kind of like my safety net. They were like my backup. Like, if I have no money, if all my online business fails, I still have that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I was kind of like forced to say, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay here with this relationship that isn't working? Am I going to stay here and just have like the safety net? Or am I going to quit my personal training clients? Am I going to travel and I'm going to go all in so incredibly hard that I have no other choice but to be successful? And by be successful, it's not make millions of dollars. It's like be successful in the sense of like, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. And at that point, I ended up going to the Dominican Republic for 5 weeks. I was so incredibly isolated. And looking back now, I would go insane. I was in this like gorgeous gated community. There was nobody, like, I think it was almost empty. There was barely anybody there. Nobody spoke English. So I was like on Google Translate on my phone, like the whole time. I didn't talk to anybody other than people like through my computer for 5 weeks.
Wow.
And the only thing I had to do was grow my business. And literally the online clients that I had, I went from 20 to 80 clients in 5 weeks because I just went all in. And I was like, if I fail, this is all on me. I have nothing to fall back on anymore. I don't have a house. I don't have another job. I need to make this happen. And so the biggest advice I can be is go all in. It is so incredibly scary, but if you believe in yourself, if you honestly think that what you're doing is right, and you don't have, like, of course we're all going to have doubts, but if you know what you're doing is right, then you can go all in on that, and you will, I truly believe that you will be successful however you want to envision that term.
That's great advice. So tell me about your fitness journey and what obstacles you encountered along the way.
Oh, all of them.
Wow.
All of the obstacles, all of the things that we've gone through. I feel I have been through, and maybe we'll talk about this later, so I might not dab into it too much right now, but I did go through a lot of, obviously, self-doubt of, am I doing this right? Am I doing this properly? For a lot of it, I lacked support systems. Not that there was anybody like against me or people saying what I was doing was wrong, but me going into like really getting into working out, really getting into focusing on my nutrition, like nobody in my family was like that. I didn't have a lot of friends that were like that because I used to be a wild partier. And there was like this time I said, okay, I'm going to stop drinking. And all of a sudden it was like this crazy change. And I lost like all of my friends. So I didn't have a big support system. So I felt like I was alone for a lot of it. So I kind of learned how to do things for me. I learned how to be very independent and to kind of believe in myself. I did go through things like body dysmorphia. I'm not going to diagnose it, but I did go through orthorexia. So just like the obsession of eating clean or the food restrictions or whatever. So yeah, and a lot of that stemmed, which again, we might get into, was powerlifting, because that was like 5 or 6 years ago, that wasn't very popular. So having me wanting to be a powerlifter and not have any friends to do it with, I'm like, I like it, but who's going to cheer me on and who's going to like encourage me, So that was like really, really challenging. Yeah. So I definitely went through personal obstacles. But I absolutely believe that all of those challenges have led me to be where I am today. So I'm grateful for them all.
Mm-hmm. What's your advice for someone maybe in that situation of having these dramatic life changes of self-improvement and not really having that support network anymore because they've changed so much?
Message me and we'll be friends. That's my encouragement. It's knowing that it's the same thing with the business that I had said, like if you really believe that what you're doing is right and what you're doing is best for you and you're not harming others and you're not being negative or promoting anything unethical, then just keep going for it. Like, again, I didn't have any cheerleaders. I was kind of like, I was posting a lot on Instagram. And even though I can say I wasn't seeking the approval of others, that's ultimately what social media is. That's why we have likes. And that's why, like, of course. So, but doing it for me, doing it because I'm like, this is cool. I don't care what other people think of me. I love this for me. So for any beginners or anyone who's kind of like feeling alone that they don't have a support system, like having a support system is great, but you need to want to do it for you beyond the external validation of others.
What do you find maybe that you encounter in your coaching with clients? What's one issue that's very common, particularly among women? Maybe it's a mistake or a mindset block or something that you really wish you could change with people and help them through.
Trusting themselves. I think a lot of women, and definitely a lot of my clients, they have a lot of fears and doubts and worries. And a lot of this stems from social media. It stems from marketing. It stems from society. And like, we are basically like led to believe for our entire lives, like as kids and as adults, like you can't trust things. And there's so much like crap on the internet. And if it doesn't feel right in your gut, like if something kind of feels off, like, oh, I need to restrict carbs, or, oh, I can't lift weights because I'm going to be heavy. Like if you're constantly living in that fear, you don't trust yourself. So being okay to trust yourself and being like, yes, I absolutely believe that this is right for me. That's something that I really help my clients over the last couple of years. I've really evolved into being more of a mindset coach for my clients, because it's so much more than just like delicious food points and fitness stuff. There's so much. And we as women are incredibly complex, beautiful unicorns. So there's so much more than just like food and fitness that we really need to tap into. And I think it all stems down to our souls and who we are inside and being able to trust and know that what we're doing is right.
So I was really intrigued looking at your YouTube account and the process you go through with the bikini competition shows that you do. It seems incredibly challenging and so many different elements involved in getting right. And you seem to be really thriving there. Can you tell me a little bit about how you first got into that and sort of what the journey has been like for you there?
Yeah, so the bikini stuff, it's still very new to me, and it still makes me laugh because when I started getting into working out, like back in college, and that was like 15 years ago, and I'm 33 now, so yeah, like 15 years ago, I wanted to do a bikini competition. I was flipping through the magazine and there was this ad and it was like this fitness model search. I can't remember what magazine it was or what the competition was. And I'm like, I want to do that. And then like a month later, I started like realizing that, okay, bikini competitions like 10 or 15 years ago are so very different from what they are now. Just the expectations, the processes, I feel like it has become, for the most part, this isn't true all the time, but it has become a lot more popular, but a lot more realistic. Like you can do a flexible dieting approach. You don't have to do restrictive diets. It's not the tilapia and asparagus that everyone believes it out to be. It's not hours of cardio. So I originally wanted to do a bikini competition. And then as I started getting into working out and started realizing kind of how toxic that industry can be, And I had some friends that kind of told me, I guess, like some horror stories, and maybe those are the worst of them, and that's not really the case anymore. So it never appealed to me. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I don't want people judging me. I think a lot of women can understand and respect this. Like, I went through body dysmorphia. The last thing I need is working my butt off to think I look really good, go on stage and literally have someone pick me apart and compare me to someone else.
Yeah.
Like, that is like the worst thing possible. So that's kind of what had stemmed me into, or led me into, powerlifting. Because I was like, I want to do something more than just like the bodybuilding stuff, going into the gym, it's leg day, it's chest day. Like, I didn't really have something to work towards. Mm-hmm. So my boyfriend at the time that I was living with and had the gym with, he was doing weightlifting. And he was doing like all the overhead stuff, which was cool. I tried it. It was just so not for me, like on every single level possible. And I've seen some women online doing powerlifting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, that's a lot easier. Like, I'm not throwing weights over my head. I'm like, I think I can manage this. So then I kind of started getting into that. And I promise I'm getting to the bikini stuff.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
I started getting into the powerlifting. And long story short, it took me 5 years of competing in powerlifting to really get over not having body dysmorphia, not being obsessed with my body and what it looks like and being a certain size. Now, I indirectly achieved really, I would say, honestly, really, really good physique goals, even though that was not the main goal. The main goal was like to be, this is my awesome body. This is how strong I can be. I can do something with my body, not just like show it off. Mm-hmm. So I was so into powerlifting for the last like 5 years. I've done, I think, 8 or 9 competitions in Canada and in Mexico. Like, I absolutely love it. And then it was about just over 2 years ago. And I was supposed to do a powerlifting competition down here. It kind of got canceled. And I was like, well, I have like a whole year until my next powerlifting competition. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And I kind of wanted to do something. I had a couple friends that were here and they were talking about doing a fitness competition. And I was like, oh, that's like so not for me. And then I started like seeing some people online doing it. And I was like, well, maybe just something aesthetic to work towards until I get back into my powerlifting. So I had this idea of like, okay, I'll do a bikini competition and then I'll jump back into powerlifting and maybe I'll kind of jump back and forth if I like it. So I ended up calling the guy who's my coach now from Atlas Bodybuilding. And I said, like, this is the position I'm in. I'm eating a boatload of calories because it's so hot here and I'm sweating all the time. I have a great physique. I have a great starting point. I'm very strong. Do you think it would be like a smart option or potential for me to do a competition? And he's like, yeah, like, you're in a really good position. You have a good mindset. You're not like obsessed with the body dysmorphia or anything. So that was a very secret competition. I didn't tell anybody about it. I'm like, I want to do this for me. I want to like just focus on that. I did it. I loved it. I came first, which was very cool. Very small competition there. And yeah, that was 2 years ago. I did my first one. And then I kind of like hopped back into powerlifting. And then last year I got into bikini again, but of course I couldn't travel to Canada and compete. So that ended up stopping. And then I got back into powerlifting. And then about December last year, November, December, I was talking to my coach again. And I was like, you know what? I really want to do bikini competitions this year. Like, what's my weakness, or what is the one thing that I really need to improve on? And he's like, your focus, or like being consistent. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm very great at being consistent. Yeah. He's like, if you want to be a powerlifter, be a powerlifter. If you want to be a bikini competitor, be a competitor. Don't hop back and forth. Because getting strong and having physique related goals, like, unless you're a genetic unicorn, it's just not going to happen. I was like, you know what, this year I'm going all in on bikini. And I did it and I love it. I'm 3 weeks out for my second competition this year. I'm really, really excited. It's been wild. It's been a wild experience. Like, you're talking about the YouTube video the videos that I did, the series from my last competition. I need to tell you, recording those videos was so incredibly exhausting. Like, I documented everything. I was on Instagram every day talking about on my stories, talking about the weight gain and everything, and just what I was doing, my cardio and my nutrition and my training, like everything. And this prep that I'm doing, I'm 10 weeks into it. And I'm like, I've told like a handful of people, I'm like, I don't even want to talk about it because everybody now knows what a bikini competition is like for me, what it involves. It gave a lot of really good insight for people. I love the experience, but I love it for me. I don't love it as something to showcase and show off because it's way too exhausting. And I think I mentioned before, I keep my competitions, both bikini and powerlifting, very, very separate from my business. I do not mix the two. I've had a few of my clients that have said like, oh, I want to do a competition. I've watched you. I want to do bikini competition. I'm like, I do not coach that. I'm not against it, but that's not my expertise. I am like total lifestyle. So there have been a few clients that I've coached for powerlifting. They love it. I love it. I'm going to say it's a lot easier because we focus on how strong the body is, not what it looks like. I don't know how to manipulate the body to that specificity. That is like very, very serious stuff. And I have coaches for that. I am not skilled in that and I don't want to get into that. So my experiences with competing with bikini competitions are phenomenal. I've had great experiences with them. They're so fun for me. But again, I do this for me. This is like my side hustle. This isn't my full-time career, or it's not who I am as well. At the end of the day, I'm still a powerlifter. And I really, to be honest, I really, really miss the powerlifting. So I'm excited for the competition to be over and be like, I just want to be strong again.
Wow. So that's such an interesting transformation there from one competition style to the next.
Yeah.
What would your advice be on, because it sounds amazing that you struggled with these body image issues and now you're out there in the tiniest bikini getting critiqued on every inch of your body and what you've done with it. How does one get from, I'm sure it's a long process, but can you give any insight into that?
Yeah, I honestly feel like the more we get into fitness, the more we notice our own flaws. There's always something. Like you can be 5% body fat and look phenomenal on a stage and you can win, like whatever you want to win, you can win. But I guarantee there's always something that you or the athlete or whoever is like, I wish I had this better in my life. Like there's always something that we want to pick apart. And I think that's fine. There's something like, you're not wrong for wanting to change something about your body, but it's like loving and respecting your body and all the things that you've been through. Like I have grown my body in phenomenal ways without making this inappropriate. My butt has grown so much and I love that. I love showing it off in a very non-sexual way, but just going on stage, and I got so nervous my last competition, like so nervous going on stage. I don't like being in the spotlight, but I was like, you know what? I worked so hard on this. I want to go show it off and I'm proud of myself. I know that I didn't look the best, but it was just such a fun experience and being around the other competitors. And I'm very grateful to be surrounded by the women in this industry that I am surrounded by, because they are very encouraging and very supportive. So even though there are thoughts of, oh, I don't look as lean, or I'm not going to look the best on stage. Like there are kind of thoughts, I guess, of body dysmorphia, but it's really important for me, or it was important, getting into bikini competitions. I need to work towards physique-related goals that aren't necessarily my goals. I need to look the way the judges want me to look. This isn't like, yes, I compete for me, but how I look is what the judges want. And that's something, I think I've talked about that in a podcast, that like, even like the last couple competitions I've done, I'm like, I'm not as lean or maybe as shredded or whatever as I've been before, just doing lifestyle stuff. And I think that's really, really important for women to understand, is like, I feel like I almost in a way look soft, or I don't look as lean going on bikini competition stage as I do maybe in everyday life. And being understanding that when you get into these competitions, you are trying to fit the mold of expectations. So if you don't look a certain way, or if they don't like how you look, it's because they have this criteria. And if you don't fit that criteria, sorry. So having that understanding, I think is very, very powerful. But as long as you are proud of yourself and you enjoy the progress along the way, then I think it can be a really enjoyable experience. But it's hard. It's very hard.
It looks it. So tell me what role supplements play in your nutrition routine.
Supplements are more important for me now that I'm on prep. Am I allowed to say who I'm sponsored by? Is that?
You are.
Okay. Just want to be sure. So I'm sponsored by Canadian Protein. I've been sponsored by them for, oh my gosh, 6 years, 5 or 6 years. Like, it's been a very long time. I've always used their products. I don't heavily rely on them, but I do know that they do play an important role, especially as I find that I use them more so when I am very focused on competition. So whether it's powerlifting or bikini, the closer I get to that, my recovery is going to be more important. My intensity or my focus or my clarity, or just like the smaller nutrients that I might not get maybe if I'm doing a bikini competition. And if I'm in a caloric deficit, then I definitely need some more supplements to help benefit me beyond my nutrition, because obviously my nutrition is going to be